Joining me on Can Do FM today, we have Simon Fell, MP. I was going to call you LP then, Mr. Fell, to get my music.
I certainly feel long played.
And Phil Wilson from GSK in Ulverston. Now, we've come on to talk about these. It's been in the press a lot recently about the proposed closure of GSK moving out of Ulverston after 73 years in the town. Phil, perhaps you could explain to us what your role is and why has the plant closed?
Yeah, thanks very much. So I'm Phil Wilson. I'm the Site Director. I cover the Ulverston manufacturing facility for GSK, and also we have a manufacturing facility over at Barnard Castle, and there's a section of that facility that I also look after as well. We manufacture the antibiotic called Zinat, as it's commonly branded around the world, and we manufacture and supply that and distribute that over around 100 countries around the world. Just start off by saying, first of all, that we did the announcement to all staff that's covering both locations on the 11th of February, so just a month ago, really. And I just want to say at this point, just to thank all the team across both facilities who have taken the news extremely professionally, obviously very disappointed with the news on the proposed closure, but they've taken it extremely professionally, and they've been really engaged with myself and my leadership team, asking lots of questions. Over 400 questions have been asked by the team, really trying to get an understanding around what the proposal means and the duration, etc. So, the team have been brilliant over the last month and beyond. We've been through difficult times over the last 12 months. Everyone has during the global pandemic. And I just want to do a special call out to my team who have continued to manufacture and supply throughout a global pandemic, supplying medicines to help save people's lives. And, people stepping out the front door during a pandemic when it was perceived not safe to do so, coming to work under real tight restrictions in a working environment to continue to make and supply medicines is just fantastic. And I just want to say a big thank you to them publicly for everything they've done and continue to do during this really difficult time.
In terms of the announcements, why now though? Yeah, so because I thought, I think the people of Ulverston were under the impression that Glaxo was sticking around for a bit longer.
Yeah, so this announcement is based on an offer that came in from Sandoz, who approached GSK to buy the cephalosporins business. Zinat is a product that sits within that family of products, the cephalosporins business. And they have come to GSK with an offer, and GSK has accepted that offer to buy that business, which are the brands. Unfortunately, the sites aren't part of that deal, which ultimately means after a period of around 4 years that we will need to look at alternatives for the sites and look to see if there are things we can do with the site, if there are other interested parties to buy the sites, because GSK doesn't have any other cephalosporins to manufacture. And cephalosporins is a form of antibiotic which, we need to be really careful from a regulatory perspective and not to manufacture other products in that same facility. It's very restrictive, so it does limit the options that we have available to us going forward. But we will seek alternative options and look at potential buyers in the future of the facility. GSK, as I said, doesn't have any products to go into the facility, so therefore the proposal is to stop cephalosporin manufacture once the transition happens to Sandoz. And unfortunately, that would mean closing the site if we can't find alternative options.
Okay, well, let's play a little bit of music now, and then we'll come back and talk to Mr. Fell about his reaction to the news. My guests on Can Do FM today are Phil Wilson, Site Director at GSK, and Simon Fell, MP. Now, before that little break there, Simon, Phil was explaining to us why it is that GSK are going to stop production at their site in Ulverston. But surely, the question is, isn't it important for Britain to have a pharmaceutical industry producing goods like vaccines, for example, particularly at this time?
Thank you. And you're absolutely right. It's absolutely crucial. And, the pandemic and COVID-19 has shown that These are areas of strength for the UK, and they're areas where weaknesses have been identified. The government has said we need to step in and we need to produce resilience, so we can go on for to provide facilities for future pandemics, for the next set of risks which lay ahead of us, but also bring some of this stuff back inshore. So we're not reliant on other countries for their manufacturing capabilities. And there's a big piece of work within government called Project Defend, which is around putting meat on the bones of that strategy and saying, where we have gaps and where we need to infill them. This decision by GSK, let's not beat around the bush about it. It's hugely disappointing, and it comes on a series of announcements from the planned expansion of the site back in 2015 to the exit from the steriles business to where we are now. But I'm reassured, working with Phil and his team, GSK been nothing but engaged and helpful to the community, and they clearly want to do the right thing. 73 years is a long time to be based in one place. So the task ahead of us now is to work together in a constructive way to make sure that the people who are in that site, who work there, are looked after, and they've got the reassurance that they need, that they're going to get reskilling if that is required, and that they're going to have the support that they need in terms of their terms and conditions and all of that. That we can try and seek an alternate buyer for the site if one can be found. If not, that we can remediate that land and use that as an economic opportunity. And I think going beyond that, looking at what a proper long-term legacy for Ulverston and the wider community is, and that's the really tricky piece of work, and that's where I and Phil and others are spending a great deal of our time at the moment, trying to determine exactly what that legacy looks like.
Okay, well, shall we take a little break there, and we'll come back and we'll discuss that in a bit more detail. I'm joined this afternoon by Phil Wilson and Mr. Simon Fell, our MP. Now, Phil is Site Director at GSK, and we're talking about the closure of GSK and how that's going to impact on Ulverston and the surrounding area. Now, GSK are working really hard to provide a legacy for the town. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that, Phil?
Yeah, so we're working very closely with Simon as part of the task force, looking at what, I guess, the needs are for the local community. And as part of that process with the task force, a number of stakeholders are engaged. As Simon chairs the meeting, and we're seeking feedback from those stakeholders in what is the right legacy to leave in the community. Obviously, the announcement that we've made, the potential closure, if that does play out, then that will leave a major concern from an economic perspective in the local community. And we're looking at options available for how we could repurpose the land, how we could generate that offset in the economy in the local community, and really taking Simon's leadership at the task force and the other stakeholders' input's really important for that.
Okay, and just to be clear, the site cannot be repurposed for the production of vaccines, for example.
So the facility that exists currently that manufactures antibiotics, and it's a totally different technology that's required to make vaccines compared to the antibiotics that we manufacture. To repurpose the site would involve knocking down all the buildings and then having to build new facilities on top of that, which, as you can imagine, would be a huge cost to do that. So the existing equipment and facilities couldn't be used for vaccines, no.
Okay. Simon, how are the government going to support GSK and the citizens of Ulverston through this transition?
Well, so this is an ongoing conversation at the moment, and I think Phil's right to highlight the fact that at the moment where we are is gathering essentially what the ask is. What does the community want? And there's a few things there. I rattled through a few in one of my previous answers around sort of looking after the employees and potentially remediating the site or helping to find a potential buyer of the site if one exists.
There is some interest, isn't there, from a company called Bioscience?
So this is, I think, moves on to the sort of bigger legacy questions,
right.
And it starts to get a bit tricky, but there's quite a lot of activity happening here. So in the wings is Lakes Bioscience, who are a local company who were established in 2019 as part of the exit from the steriles business in the Ulverston site. GSK have given a land donation and a not insubstantial financial donation to the community, which has allowed this business to get planning permission to operate on this site. Obviously, if we can get them up and running, that would be absolutely game changing for the community. It would secure jobs and skills in the community, and it would allow a long-term legacy for this sort of biopharmaceutical manufacturing capability within Ulverston and the surrounding area. That would be an incredible result, and it's obviously something that I'm pushing for very hard, and I'm working with ministers to make the case for that. But there's a lot of moving parts, to be honest, about how to get there. And I'm seeking GSK's buy-in on this. It would be great to have their support, from the very top of the business. But I'm also pushing the government on the sorts of work that they're undertaking, as they've identified that there are gaps in the supply chain, gaps in what we have capability to deliver in the UK at the moment, so that they can perhaps focus some of that activity around Lakes Bioscience and the Ulverston site in particular. Some of this has to go to tender, some of this has to go up to Secretary of State level and even Prime Ministerial level to get sign off. And obviously there's ongoing conversations with GSK, but if we can pull this off, it will be absolutely huge for the community, and it'll leave a lasting legacy in terms of what GSK has delivered in our community for the last 73 years, and what that similar sort of activity could be doing in our community for another 70 odd.
Yeah, and so it's really an opportunity to be positive about the future, Phil. There are all sorts of suggestions as to what the site might be used for in the future.
Yeah, and I think that what Simon mentions there, Lakes Bioscience is I guess a real example of what the future could be in the Ulverston area, and it's certainly something that we have been supportive of as a company, and we've worked with Lakes Bioscience over the last number of months, even prior to this announcement, and we'll continue to work with Lakes Bioscience. We've, as part of the steriles cessation announcement we made in October 2018, we've been working with South Lakeland District Council on the land that we have available, because we do have a lot of land, and it is we want to make that available to hopefully drive economic growth and improve the whole community. And part of that was donating land to South Lakeland District Council with a view that we could continue the life science aspects and industry within this community that we have a rich history of. As you mentioned, 73 years and still counting, which is really important. And we've got some fantastic people in our community that can that have worked and continue to work in life sciences. So we have donated the land to South Lakeland District Council, who are in the process of supporting Lakes Bioscience. So that's one barrier that we have tried to remove for an investor to come into this community. Another one is around Lakes Bioscience. There was a lot of work done by GSK upfront back in 2012 to 2017, about 5 years worth of work to develop a schematic, a plan, detailed drawings, etc., for a biopharm facility. As you remember, that announcement we did in 2017 to stop that. But all that effort that was put in hasn't been wasted. That has been donated over to Lakes Bioscience, which again helps them go faster in their approach and what they want to try and achieve with this facility. So we have done, we're working with them, and we've given them a lot of support so far. and we're sitting down and we're discussing what more support can we give to help Lakes Bioscience get this off the ground, which would be an amazing an amazing achievement and amazing for our community if something like that can land at Ulverston.
Yes, that's excellent. Now, you did mention that there is a task force, and and there's obviously public consultation. How can local people have a say in what happens with the future of that site?
So there are a few parts to this. If anyone wants to visit my website, I've got a dedicated GSK task force page on there, so simonfell.org. And you'll be able to find it on there. There's a feedback form on there, so you can send your thoughts and contributions and what you might hope to see happen at the site and might hope to see in way of legacy through there. And I've had dozens of people come through that channel, and it's been really, really helpful actually, because of course when an organisation's been in the community for so long, you sort of forget how many ties they have to that community and how they support. From the local sports group to the rescue service across the road from them. So drawing all this information out is really valuable for the conversations we then have with GSK. There's also the ability to put a bit of pressure on the government to be doing the right thing in this space. And again, if people want to come to me and send me angry letters or emails on this subject, I will make sure that ministers see those, because what I'm trying to do is build a groundswell of support within the ministerial grouping who make decisions on this, so that actually they see that there's a huge opportunity in our community with invested skills, people who have lived and breathed this stuff for generations, and it will be such a shame if it just went away. So I'm pushing on a few fronts there. I met with the vaccines minister last week on this. I raised it with the PM in a meeting on Wednesday. And we keep pushing with life sciences as well. So we just need to keep that pressure up and let them know that in terms of levelling up agenda, in terms of communities like ours, the political phrase is red wall seats. There is an opportunity here, and we want ministers to grab it with both hands. But the more public support we can get behind that, the stronger my voice is when I'm making that argument.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, and people need to remember that you can't act unless you've got a swell of public opinion behind you. Right. Okay. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time today. Very interesting. And let's wait and see what happens.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you.